Well, howdy, howdy, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Lauren Muzyka Show, your favorite update in the battle for life, family, and freedom. So excited, so honored to have you hanging out with me once again. I'm Lauren Muzyka, attorney and human rights advocate, and I serve as president and CEO of Sidewalk Advocates for Life, the nation's largest peaceful sidewalk outreach organization. Now, here is what is so fun about this episode. I've invited back, because it was just so awesome doing part one, I've invited back Joe Evermore to continue our discussion. So this is part two of our discussion. But we actually recorded these episodes about 5 to 6 weeks apart. So it feels like eons since Joe and I sat down to chat. But to you, the listener, it's only been a week. So I had some good time to think about that very first discussion that we had. And again, I have to say that after we finished that, I had a moment where I was like, wow, I really felt the presence of the Holy Spirit so strongly during our discussion. Maybe it's just me, but I know that so many of you probably needed to hear what Joe shared. And so we wanted to go ahead and have round two. As I mentioned before, the verse, Proverbs 29:18 says that without a vision, the people perish. That's a verse, as I shared before, that's been haunting me as of late. Famous business leader Dave Ramsey said on a recent podcast, reflecting on this verse, that if you don't have vision, if you don't have a solid idea of where you're going and who you are and what you're about, you'll eventually succumb to the whims of everyday life, that you'll find yourself eventually thrust possibly in a direction that's very different from what you or even God intended. I have long thought that one of the biggest crises in the kingdom is a fear of dreaming and ending up disappointed. I see so many people selling themselves short because of a fear of failure, or that thing called imposter syndrome, right? Where people have a moment where they say, well, who am I? Who am I to be beautiful and well-spoken and leading this ministry and doing this thing or related, right? And it freezes them. They never get moving. Maybe another part of that is the inability to really just sit with God and ask hard questions of what He wants this thing on your heart to look like. We're so afraid at times of coming up short in some way, so we never define our mission, or we never talk about something as important and, yes, mundane as branding. What does this thing look like out in the marketplace? What does it look like once it's built? And I just think of how that's shortchanging so much of what God wants to do through us. Again, I believe that's why the scriptures call us to take every thought captive. That verse in Romans, to take every thought captive. And why we're called to continuously renew our minds and fill it with His hope and faith, because where we end up often starts in our thoughts. So, in that spirit, we continue part two of our discussion regarding what it looks like to dream big and run after a God-sized vision. Also, be sure that if you have not listened to part one, that you do so at some point as well. It is just too good to miss. I've been continuing to pray that whoever needs to hear this today will stumble onto this podcast. So with that, let me go ahead and reintroduce our special guest. As a CEO, Joe Evermore has built many successful businesses and raised tens of millions over the last decade, working shoulder to shoulder with world-changing nonprofit leaders to unlock their potential and reach their goals. He founded and grew the national pro-life organization Save the Storks from his garage. Didn't Amazon start in a garage, right? To a ministry and brand that launched over 60 mobile medical units around the country and raised millions in support of the pro-life mission, with thousands of lives saved. Joe then transitioned to a consultant role, building relationships and making decisions through his new business, Superhero Sidekick. In addition to his nonprofit work, Joe has created several for-profit businesses that have generated tens of millions in revenue and created jobs for several teams of people. Joe has been married to his wife, Anne, for over 10 years, and he and his sons are all about life adventures and achieving big goals and climbing big mountains, things that scare the heck out of me, right? I just love the witness of their family and being able to dream big and scale mountains and achieve big goals. It's so cool to watch. All right, let's go ahead and welcome back to the show, Joe Evermore. Hey, Joe, how's it going?
Hey, I'm super stoked to talk about this fun topic.
Yeah.
Dreaming big, how to do that.
Excited for round two. I did not exaggerate. That episode that we recorded, which from the listeners' perspective, was last week, right? Wow. I had a moment where I was like, that was the most fun podcast ever. this is foundational stuff. We have to talk about this, right? It all starts with this. Like, we're not going to, get launched into our God-sized dream if we don't get some of this stuff right, right? So, let's go ahead and jump right back in. In our first discussion, we talked about a lot, including a crisis in the kingdom, if indeed you agree with that, right? In regards to dreaming. To me, you are one of the leaders that does this well in spades. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about what you noticed from where you sit, both as a former ministry leader, as the former CEO of Save the Storks, the founder of that great organization, and now a consultant to many groups. Why do you see this potentially as a problem?
Yeah, I mean, I I remember I tried to do this thing when I was at when I was leading Storks. We tried to attract like almost like a Shark Tank of ideas to try to get like really good ideas, and so we bought out a bunch of booth space at Heartbeat, and we invited people to come and give us their best idea that we would consider investing in.
Hmm.
And I was actually pretty overwhelmed by how lacking we were in great ideas. Like when there was a lot of money on the table, I was like, man, these
Wow.
are all not original. They're not
Yeah.
sellable. They're not that big. They're not that, it's like they're not that, world changing. And I was
Hmm.
longing for new, innovative concepts. And yeah, so we're definitely like kind of lacking that. It feels like people aren't, searching for it like I was hoping they would be.
Yeah. Why do you think there was a lack? Like, do you think people are scared? Like, were they scared to bring you ideas? Do you see people like limiting themselves when God may want to do this great thing? Like, what do you see as the issue in that? Why didn't you get that day what you were hoping for?
Yeah, I think people like I lived in Alaska for a year, and
Mm,
one of the things they do in Alaska is they put these ruts, or these not ruts, these spikes on their tires that create ruts in the road. And then when you
mm.
drive on the road in Alaska, your car kind of falls into the rut. They call it a stud rut, and you could like take your hands off the wheel, and it just kind of drives. It's like tracks.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what it's like. It's like I think a lot of people who are in ministry are just like in these tracks. They're just like headed somewhere. Like it's just so easy to stay in that rut and not get out of it, and
Yeah.
I, getting out of it's risky, getting out of it's, and most people are like, they don't have a lot of margin. They can't,
Mm.
take, if they don't get paid for 6 months, they're in big trouble. Most people, especially even in our movement, in our ministry. And so they
Yeah.
don't have margin to like do something new and innovative and risky, and so they don't. It's scary to do that. It's like, but honestly, that's what I think God calls us to. It's like when God calls Peter out of the boat onto the water, it's always an invitation into risk. And so
Mm.
it feels like that's really where the breakdown is. We need to take, as leaders, as entrepreneurs, we need to be taking those risks, trying things, failing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And one of the things that I really took away from our first discussion was that, sometimes we see people's highlight reel. We go, oh, they're so successful, right? Lauren Muzyka, look, she went from 22 sidewalk outreach locations to, 282, 25,000 babies saved. And they don't see like all the consternation in between
yeah.
decisions that were made, right? And times where we tried something and, oh, that didn't work. And now we got to change this program because it's a lot more efficient. And can you talk about that a little bit, like fear of failure and why failure is actually really important in this journey?
Yeah, it's how you grow. It's how you grow. And
Yeah.
when it comes to failure, the one of the hardest pieces of that is losing money. Like it's
Mm,
really hard for people to like actually risk capital and then lose it, especially in our
yeah.
move. And I think that's the thing that holds them back. It's like, but one of my mentors taught me once. He said, Joe, he's like, there's two rules of money. Rule number one is you grow the most when you lose the most money. And then
Hmm.
rule number two is that rule number one only applies if you don't blame others. And so, and so if you really look
Wow.
inwardly and figure out what were the mistakes that you specifically made
Yeah.
that created, your failure. And
Yeah.
the people that really look inward and adjust and lose and adjust and lose and adjust, they're the ones who win the biggest.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So it's
category.
like a radical personal responsibility. It's not to say that other people didn't affect you or your situation didn't affect you, but at the end of the day, you are where you are either because you allowed something or you didn't move or you, right? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like you're guaranteed to fail if you don't get up and take a risk. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, but if you risk, there's a chance that you'll be right, that you'll nail it, that you'll figure it out. And I
Yeah.
think it's so important that especially we have people of faith are doing that. We talked a little bit about that last time. It's like that is
Mm.
the whole point. Is like we're supposed to be taking risk.
Yeah, yeah. One of my favorite people in the business space, he's also known as the debt guy, is Dave Ramsey, right? Like I'm an avid listener of his podcast. And one of the things he says a lot of times when he's reintroducing his podcast, a new episode, is he says, the difference between me and the other guy is I'm standing on top of my pile of failures and the other guy is buried underneath them. And that's so cool. I love that he says that because it's like I look at him and I see this multi-million dollar business, right? So successful, podcast, books, Ramsey personalities, right? He's not just, the Christian debt guy now. He's expanded into the business world. He's now, somebody who's been a Fox News commentator and he's all over the place, right? And he just said that the difference between him and the other guy is that he didn't give up. He didn't give up, right?
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
really is so encouraging. Um, Let me ask this. I know for me in ministry that has been so instructive, even in my personal life. You're a husband and father. You are training your young sons to dream big, to set big goals, to go after them. Why is vision not just important for your business, your ministry, but for your family too? And how does one even pour into the other?
yeah, yeah. So it's like people, like you said in your presentation, people need vision.
Yeah.
It's leaders that create vision.
Mm,
It's actually it's a combination of something of how we're wired and a skill that we acquire together. And it's like people that can create vision, rise up. And there are certain people, kind of like the Elon Musks of the world, that are really genetically inclined to be like that. That's how God
mm,
made them. Um, and so when I think about my boys, I want to help them to expand their ideas, to think really big, to set really big goals. Like I want goals like that are almost impossible. And so every
yeah.
year we do one goal, each kid that's looks impossible, that seems impossible, and then we train every single day toward that goal. And usually we hit our goals. We missed one this last summer when Sam and I weren't able to climb the Matterhorn in Switzerland. We got within
Mm,
1,200 feet of the summit and had to turn around because of a cutoff. But it was
yeah.
it was all of that preparation for that that like is really so life changing for a boy. It's so and
Mhm.
then to get there and then have to turn around because we're going to respect the mountain. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you all that story, but just a couple weeks after we turned around because of an arbitrary cutoff that we knew we had crossed, and that there's no like timer or anything on the mountain. It's just on your watch. But about a week or two later, three climbers on the same mountain blew through the same cutoff, and all three of them perished on the mountain. And
Golly. Wow.
it
Yeah.
was a serious deal for me and Sam. Like I, we made this hard decision to turn back, and we got to go back tomorrow, all the way to Switzerland, or this next year we're going back. So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. Well, and I remembered reading that happened to you guys. I was following you guys as you went to Switzerland and you were going to climb the Matterhorn, right? And then to hear that like you were a wise father. You were like, "No, like I'm going to put my son in danger. I'm put myself in danger." And that must have been really hard for you because I know like you dream big, you go for it and you want to see it finished. I know it's hard for me to let go of something just temporarily, right? And to wait for the right time. And I think that's instructive in and of itself. So you were wise, and you're like, you know what, there will be time to scale this mountain, but we had to kind of dial back just a little bit, right? So there is still wisdom in all of that. I know for me, I'm the type of leader too, where I sometimes have to. I have a lot of friends; they got to push themselves forward a lot of times for Lauren Muzyka, it's like you're ahead of God. Like you need to stop, right? And sometimes you need to exercise wisdom and just be like, okay, God's got this. Like I've done my part. God's got this. I got to hang back for just a little bit, right? So that's
Well,
instructive in and of itself.
one
Yeah.
of the big rules in our house is that you can't die, and so, uh,
Good
and so
baseline.
I didn't wanna break that rule, on
Yeah.
that note with Sam, so
Yeah. Healthy boundaries. Dreaming big, but healthy boundaries.
yeah.
Let me ask you this. Sometimes I hear from people, well, I just don't wanna do bad. I just don't wanna fail, but then they fail to actually, like, set up a vision for themselves of, like, where they're going. Sometimes the bar is so low. Like, I just don't wanna experience this again, and so I'm not gonna set this vision because I'm scared that it won't turn out well or whatever it is. Like, can you even outline the importance of articulating what something should look like? Like, why is that a thing? Why does that matter?
Well, I'm always, scared of a small vision. Like,
Mm,
I'm like, the small if, like, you're getting involved with someone, like, working for them,
yeah.
be scared if their vision is small. Be
Mm,
excited if their vision is big. Like, it's the small
mm.
vision that you risk the most. I mean, for instance, I'm working on a conference with some people, and they wanna do this big conference, and, we're like I was like, "We need to get Tucker Carlson to be the headliner." And they're like, "Well, that costs $250,000." Like, that's the going rate is on that. But it's like, soon as you get him, we could fill the whole arena. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is a done deal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas a small vision is like, "No, we wanna go cheap on our speakers." And it's like, "Okay, well, this is pretty freaking risky now. We might have, 500
Wow.
people in a 20,000 person stadium, you know? Like, are you
Yeah.
gonna be able to sell tickets for that, you know?" And so it's like
Mm.
the bigger vision seems more risky, but actually, as you begin to really get used to things in this world, that's the better one to invest in, not
Yeah.
not the smaller vision.
Ironically, it sounds like what you're saying is there's less risk. When you define it, you've got
You're
a
right.
clear direction, and that actually pulls you out of the gutter, right?
Right.
Rather than saying, well, I just want to make sure that I'm not in the gutter, right? It's so important to find that balance. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Um, what would you say to somebody who is scared to dream? Like, how do we get people dreaming bigger? How do we walk that out well? How do we go from that dream to actually like seeing these things come to fruition?
Well, I think a big thing is that people are wounded. There's a lot of
Mm,
people that are deeply wounded, and it's like dreaming is risky, dreaming is painful, dreaming can kill you.
mm,
It's like they've taken a big hit, like,
yeah.
I was trying to encourage a family here in Colorado Springs to buy a home instead of rent. They're a military family. And when you buy a house with the military, you buy it with no money down. It's like this amazing deal. They give you all of these perks to buy it. And I'm like, you should buy a house. This is one of the best markets to buy in. And like, well, we had this other house at another location and it went bad and we lost some money. And I'm like, "Don't worry
Mm,
about that." Don't stop thinking let
yeah.
me tell you what it's like here. Let me tell you what the statistics are here, what your likelihood of that happening here. And they couldn't do it. They were too scared because they were
Too
hit,
fast.
before.
Yeah.
And that's it's like, how did you process that last thing? How did you deal
Yeah.
with that last thing? And so I think a lot of people when it comes that are dreamers that are struggling here, they're wounded. Something has
Yeah.
happened where they kinda stuck their neck out, they got pounded back, and now "Yeah, I think I'm just gonna play it easy. I'm gonna stay in the stud rut."
Yeah, yeah. And what I hear you saying is like it's important to process that and learn from it, right? Like not take that as necessarily even something against you personally, or it's just, hey, this is an experience that we can learn from. Okay, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? And how could this possibly work differently, right? I see
Exactly.
people throwing out their God sized vision because an aspect of it didn't turn out well. Well, why didn't it turn out well, right? Is it just a simple tweak? Is it looking at a process that was not serving you well, right? Maybe you had a wrong person in a wrong seat that just kind of tanked the thing, right? But conceptually, it's like, hey, if this has worked for other people, why isn't it working for me? Right?
Yeah.
What do I need to change in order to achieve, this dream? And I think you're right. And in bringing that disappointment to God, laying it at the foot of the cross and asking for that transformation. And God, like, how can I go again from point A to point B and do it differently this time? Right?
Yeah. The
Yeah.
most important question in there is what did I do to contribute to it? Like
Mm,
number two, don't blame others. Like it's like if you because a lot, like for instance, that conversation that I had where that guy says the two rules of money was me telling him about these business partners that had robbed me. And like I had these business partners that were really created a whole bunch of inside deals and profited themselves while the business kind of just floundered.
mm.
And I was telling him about this, and he says, Joe, you pick these partners, you set up all these contracts, you created no oversight and accountability, and now you are whining about them when it's all you. If you would just look within yourself, you will never make these mistakes again, and you'll be a great leader.
Wow.
And I was like,
Wow.
oh, it was like an arrow in
Dang.
my heart because I wanted to blame it on them why I was broke.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
always want to blame it on somebody else why when we fail. And it's
Right.
like, even if 10% of that is my fault, like if I can own that and totally like grow through that, that loss is worth every penny for my next venture.
Yeah. Ooh, that's so good. So good. Yeah. It's hard sometimes to sit down and look at a situation and go, what was my role in this? I remember reading Dave Ramsey's Entree Leadership book, and one of the things he said is that if your corporate culture is in a nosedive right now, it's your fault as the leader because you either allowed that behavior and you didn't fire somebody or you didn't set a standard or whatever, right? And
Yep.
really taking a moment to look at your role in all of that, so important. Um, the brand, like once we dream big and we start to lay out something, we're ready to walk it out. The look and feel of our mission, a lot of times people don't spend any time on this. They throw something together. Sometimes we're here in the pro-life movement and we throw up the 80s paper angels, or I see some people in my industry in sidewalk outreach, so to speak, and they're on the front lines there in front of multi-million dollar Planned Parenthood with their pulled together look and their hot pink drenched everywhere, and man, in their hands is a pamphlet from the 90s, something that maybe women and families just can't relate to because we're in a different era, right? Why is this important? Like, you guys spend a lot of time on this in Superhero Sidekick and in your consulting business. Like, why spend time on it?
There are very few things more important than this.
Mm,
This is like the most important. So let's address what a brand is, you know.
yeah.
People people hire me to work on their brand and they think I'm coming to work on their logo. That's what
Hmm,
their is, but the brand is not their logo. The
yeah.
logo is a tool within within their company that helps build their brand. But
Yeah.
it is not their brand. Well, when I was in my 20s, I got this opportunity to help brand cows. And like
Mm,
it was they take out these young cows and you actually have to wrestle them down and then they stab the cow to burn into their flesh the emblem, the mark on these cows so that farmers can know which ones are which. That's what a brand is. A brand
yeah.
is not something we possess. It's actually in the people that we're reaching. It's
Mm,
actually it's in hundreds or thousands or millions of people that we're reaching. That's what your brand is. And
mm,
it's like we get to think about it like that. It's really a brand instead of thinking about it as it's synonymous with logo, think about it as synonymous with reputation. It's like
mm.
this is really what people think about when they think about you. When they,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
and and even a person that doesn't have a logo, they have a brand, they have a reputation, and they have that as soon as
Mm,
you leave the room, they talk about it. Like
yeah.
it's like that's what you're leaving. That's the burning into the flesh, into them. And so it's like that's why it's so important. So it's like we got everything that we do, we have to think about how does that affect the people that we're reaching? How does that affect what's being burned into their mind? And the logo it allows us because we're human, like allows us to kind of simplify everything around that. But it's
Yeah.
not. That's just a tool within a brand. It's not the brand.
Yeah, yeah. When people are starting to think about their logo, their brand, their colors, like the experience that they want to create in the marketplace, where do you have them start? Like, how do they start brainstorming that? Or how do they improve what they currently have? What kind of questions would you have them ask?
Yeah, so there's several things I do to like help them work on their name, their look, their logo, their feel, their top three words, their rally cry, their, all these different pieces that we have that kind of begin to em embody what we would call, people often call it the brand. But like what you were saying is like when you think about why this is so important, you think about when you hand that woman that flyer, what is being presented to her? Like
Mm,
what are we saying to her? So like the most
so
important thing about
good.
brand is your promise, is your
Yeah.
brand promise. It's like, and we don't think about this on a daily basis, but like, it's like if I were to drink this can of, you know, bubbly and one time drink into this and get a mouthful of hair, I would never buy this again.
Right.
Ever. If I drank this and it drank like a booger, like I
Ugh,
would never buy this again. You know what I mean?
right.
We cringe at that thought. But because every time they fulfill their promise to me, in my
Mm,
mind, I trust this feeling here. In the
yeah.
same way, that's what it is. And and it's like we have these things that create that bond. It's and we even see all these CEOs doing that. Like I don't think I've ever seen a Tesla commercial. Like I don't I can't ever remember actually seeing a Tesla commercial, but I see this character that Elon Musk has created with himself. And it's someone that so many people trust that he sells 400,000 of these crazy vehicles every year. Like that's such a unique way to do it, but like he has a brand where you trust him, where you believe him. You know he's like trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are
Absolutely.
things important.
And so many people have this thing about like, well, I don't really care what my image is, right? And I get that to an extent. It's like, oh, you don't care what anybody thinks of you, but at the same time, like the way I look at it too, it's like your connection to the. I mean, first of all, to the good or the service that you provide, right? But the consumer, it's your connection to the consumer, right? It's about relationship, right?
Totally.
Yeah,
That's what we're talking about: trust and love and friendship and
yeah,
promise being kept. Like it's
yeah. I
what do
think
you mean
about
you don't care what you look like? Like that doesn't make any sense. Like
right. Well, and I think so much about the very women that we are trying to serve in the pro-life, pro-family movement, the women that I'm trying to serve day in and day out in Sidewalk Advocates for Life. That woman has been sold a bill of goods by a more than 100-year so-called reproductive health care provider called Planned Parenthood, America's largest abortion empire, aborting about 400,000 babies every single year. But the reason that they're able to get away with what they're able to get away with, the reason they still have so much traffic, through their front door is because they have sold the public an image. They have sold them a certain brand. And yes, the pro life movement, as they brought out the truth of who Planned Parenthood is, America's largest abortion provider. I think it's like 1 in 3 abortions are done in a Planned Parenthood in this country. So they're killing children. They've had a lot of scandal against them, aiding and abetting underage sex trafficking, selling baby body parts, teaching minor children BDSM. I mean, we got a long rap sheet on these folks,
yeah.
right? But it still floored me when a few years ago I went to a Christian conference and this girl that I'm talking to, this Christian gal, late 20s, had a positive view of Planned Parenthood, did not know all of that, right? And she saw them just as these bold women who were drenched in hot pink. When she saw commercials, she saw the doctors who were, had their hair done and they were in long white coats, and it was sold as healthcare. That this healthcare entity that's coming to bat for women and for families. I thought one of the most dangerous commercials that they had. It was this simple YouTube video that I ran into. I thought this was like the most like, as like every pro lifer needed to watch this and see what Planned Parenthood was putting out there. But it was this religious young woman. She was clearly Catholic. She had like some images of the saints in her little apartment. She's holding her little dog, and all of a sudden you're starting to relate to her, right? Oh, my kitchen looks like hers. Oh, I have a little dog, right? She's sweet and she's well spoken. Maybe not the most well spoken person that I've ever listened to, right? But she talked about how her parents brought her a lot of shame around the issue of sex, right? And all of a sudden, this big sister named Planned Parenthood came into her life, right? So you see her going from her apartment as this young, religious, kind of semi pulled together young woman who's just trying to make it in the world and make ends meet and is going through school. And oh, what a relief. She literally says that. What a relief. Like I could walk into the arms of Planned Parenthood and get the education that I needed, right? And then indirectly a lifestyle was being sold through that. Hey, as long as I just do A, B, and C, it doesn't matter who I use or who I'm with, or much less what my heart looks like on the other side of this, right? And I just see the other side doing this so well. I see the other side doing this so well. And I say to myself, if they are killing it, I mean literally, but if they're killing it in all these departments, why are we as kingdom minded, as Christ centered people not bringing the best of the best strategy and branding knowledge and gifts and talents to this fight, right? I mean, I really see it as a crisis because when I stand in front of a Planned Parenthood facility, yes, I don't have millions of dollars, but I suddenly can start competing when my hair is decent, when I'm wearing a professional uniform, a safety reflector vest that identifies me as being a sidewalk advocate, when I've got reputable literature and life affirming resources, right? All of a sudden, this is a nice big David and Goliath battle, and I'm competing well, right? But I think about how there are some sidewalk counselors, again, no names or anything like that, just in the over 20 years I've been on the sidewalk. Some people go to the sidewalk in their old t-shirt and their basketball shorts and homemade signs. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I've made some homemade signs but yes, sometimes they look like ransom notes out there, right? And it's like, man, do we want to compete well, right? Anyways, I don't mean to go off there and get
No,
on my
it's good.
soapbox, but right? I mean, what are we up against here? And why are we not thinking on this level, Joe?
Well, first of all, that's the problem with advertising is advertising is a way to lie to you. And it's
Mm,
like that's what is
mm,
happening with Planned Parenthood. They are offering you a set of promises without really talking to you about the cost of this. Like they
yeah,
want freest a way out of this. You want out, we can let you out. And it's like that is such a seductive offer.
yeah,
It's like we can't it's just hard to just in general compete with that. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because it's like the way that you compete with that is to say, well, what you're doing is really not the best thing for you. It's really going to hurt you. You're really going to regret this. Like
yeah,
that's hard to convince somebody of that. And so
right.
it's kind of an uphill battle for us. But that's what we need to do. We need to give them the truth that like actually it's true. You're a mom now. Like,
Yeah,
it's gonna be hard, but you know what? You can do it. Well, and we can love and celebrate your baby and celebrate you. And it's like that kind of mentoring, counseling, loving, that's what we need to do professionally, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, in the Vitae Foundation, in one of their latest research studies, again, they've got the most comprehensive research about the best kind of messaging to a woman considering abortion. This research spans a few decades. That one of the studies that they had was on the brand strengths and weaknesses of America's abortion empire, Planned Parenthood. And one of the things that it says is that, the image, the vision that they're selling to people actually doesn't match what really happens in that woman's experience. And it actually begins to undercut their brand, right? They say, hey, you're going to have all this freedom on the other side, like, $500. Nobody has to know. Your life will magically go back to normal. Abortion is this great thing, right? And a woman gets to the other side of that and goes, whoa, like the promises they made me, they're not delivering on. It looks good on the surface, but when I actually open that can of Coke, it's not Coke, it's a mouthful of hair, right? And
But
so we do have that going for us. But I often think about initially when that woman is going in there, if we don't sell her another vision, right? There's this principle in the psychology of influence called commitment and consistency. The idea is that when somebody makes a commitment, they tend to want to follow through on it, especially if they see it, see a problem and they're looking desperately for a solution, right? And we have found out on the sidewalk that it's not enough to come against Planned Parenthood's brand to just say, oh, don't do that. Don't have an abortion. But if we sell her a new solution, right? If we can give her a new vision for what's possible as the beautiful young woman as she is and reconcile and present with future self, moving into that strength of motherhood, and she still gets to have part of her identity now and all of that, right? And this is again, it's so cool how it all kind of loops back to vision. But I feel like it starts with, what does Lauren look like on the sidewalk? If I look disheveled, if I don't look professional, if my materials aren't pulled together, I mean, I don't even have a chance of winning her heart, of winning her business. I'll lose it before it even begins, right? It's so important.
Absolutely. And
Good.
really it's like, if you go back to that analogy of like, if I got a mouthful of hair with that drink, one of
Yeah.
the first things I would do is put that picture onto Instagram or Twitter. You know what I
Mm,
mean? The first things I would do is tell my friends that. What
yeah.
happens when someone has an abortion? They realize that all of their promises have been broken,
Yeah.
but they
Yeah.
don't share it. They keep it silent.
Mm,
And they don't, and it's like, and that just like has made it so possible for this industry to just balloon with continually presenting a lie to people,
yeah. Yeah.
because it's so hard to get, because you don't want to tell everybody what you just did or how wrong it was.
Right,
Mhm.
right. And I think you hit on something so powerful as like human story, right? If we're going to defeat this brand, we need people telling their
Yeah,
stories. We need,
that's what we need. That is
yeah.
the winner. If you want to bring Planned Parenthood down, we need to tell the stories. As I see the pro-life movement doing over the last 10 years, has really gotten better at this.
Oh,
Of
good.
like, we need to boldly tell these stories.
Yeah,
And you've had an abortion, one of the best things that you can do to move forward the pro-life, movement, is to share that story and to tell
yeah.
people that you were lied to and get that word out.
Yeah, and change the whole brand around abortion,
Yeah.
right? So there you go. Um, Joe, I'd love for you in closing here to talk to the people who are frozen right now. There are people out there that are afraid to dream. There are other people who are at different stages of this. There's somebody out there that they've gotten everything that they need. They've got their God-sized vision. They've gotten the training or education that they've needed, but they're just struggling with like walking that out. Maybe they feel like they need one more instructional, one more podcast, one more thing to finally give themselves permission to just go for it. What would you say to that person today?
Well, first of all, if it's the person who feels like they have the dream and they're just kind of like not ready to go yet, I recommend just like writing down a set of steps and just start
Mm,
continually moving those steps forward. Okay, let's just get like one thing done. Let's get the next thing done. It's
yeah.
take steps moving forward, and that I mean that'd be my recommendation. If you're someone who has a burden with an idea, just
Yeah.
take one step each day, like, just start moving it forward.
Yeah.
Eventually, it
And
will pick up traction.
I think sometimes we're afraid of the mundane, right? We think like we get this big dream and this light comes down and all of a sudden we're like scribes that are just like magically writing all this out. But I know I have found in building Sidewalk Advocates for Life, which by God's grace today is the largest sidewalk outreach organization in the nation and maybe rightly the world, right? Really the world. It was one right decision every single day, and
Yeah.
even in the wrong decisions, learning from those, right? Again, people I think sometimes see my highlight reel and like, wow, Lauren makes it look so easy. But at the end of the day, there was consternation. There were people that I had a fire. There were, hard decisions that had to be made. There were difficult things that we've had to handle behind the scenes as leaders. And it just looks like everything's perfect every single day. And, we're handed this magic building block and we just know. But I have often found that the magic is in the mundane, is doing exactly what you said, is just sitting down and being like, okay, I'm here and my dream is here. What does it look like in between there? Right?
Yeah, like, you don't need to quit your job tomorrow. You just have to, like, start pushing it forward, like,
Yeah.
the first fundraiser that I ever did was in my mom's living room. I couldn't
Mm.
believe that somebody gave us $5,000. Like, I was like, "That's amazing. That's the most money I've ever I can't believe someone would do that,"
Right.
That was that blew my mind, and, like, that little group of people gave us some money, like, that
Mm.
in to fund something. So it's like, so taking one step, the next
Yeah.
step. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So good. Well, Joe, I'm so grateful again that we could come back together and have another discussion around this. Just really important stuff as people are getting their dreams off the ground and walking that out. If people want to learn more about you, work with you, where do they go to get more
Yeah, check out
information?
superherosidekick.com. And you can also just email me at joe@superherosidekick.com. I'd love to just chat with you and help you grow your organization. It's what I'm good
Mm,
at.
so good. So good. All right. Well, thank you, brother. It's been another great discussion. Appreciate you and can't wait to see what God does through you next, what next business you have. So we'll be watching. Thanks so much. Well, quick closing thought here. If money weren't an object, what would you be doing? This is a really good thought exercise, right? If you had all the resources you needed, what do you think God is calling you to do? I mean, that's a powerful question. And I just want to encourage you to sit with that for a little bit and be unafraid to put a name on it. Then ask yourself, if I believed just for a moment that anything was possible, what would I be doing? And I just encourage you then to kind of walk that back, right? Lay it out step by step with confidence, but keep in mind that you're in the mindset of this is possible. If this were really possible, I'm going to quiet the voices of doubt, right? And I'm just going to lay this out. What would I be doing? How would I be doing something different? Then ask for God to help you to rally the resources that you need. Yes, be unafraid to consult with someone on a matter such as funding. I have a couple of development consultants that I use, for example, but I just want to encourage you to not endlessly learn without getting moving. So many people get frozen at different points in the journey here, right? And they never actually move. They're drowning in imposter syndrome. And they need to know, as the scriptures say, when you pray, believe that you have it already. If God has given you that dream, He will give you the means to walk it out. He will give you the resources. It's not to say that you won't have the very human moments that you need to have a hard discussion with a donor or temporarily maybe bring on an expert to help you with something, but don't fail to get moving. That's where the magic is. The magic is in the mundane, and God will be with you. So if you are somebody who says, we need that mobile unit, or I'm supposed to open that pregnancy center, or I'm supposed to go be this big pro family speaker, or I am supposed to start my own podcast. Like this is on your heart. You know it somewhere deep inside. Just trust that you will have what you need as you get moving. God cannot move a parked car. So get moving and know that we're cheering you on. With that, thank you so much again for joining me for another episode of the Lauren Muzyka Show. We'll be back here next Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central on the Sidewalk Advocates for Life Facebook page, YouTube channel, or wherever you get podcasts. Thanks so much, everybody.